Okay. Well, welcome to the Indigenous Entrepreneurs Podcast. Today I have Ryan Taylor with me. And fun fact, Ryan and I used to go to elementary school together in Santa Fe at Nava Elementary. So it's really cool to have him here, and to be able to learn about all the cool things he's doing with his startup. So, um, let's get started just with if you could introduce yourself, Ryan, and anything you would want the listeners to know about you and who
Mhm.
you are.
Yeah. My name is Ryan Rainbird Taylor. I think you mostly know me as Ryan Lujan Taylor. So that's kind of funny that a lot of people are starting to realize that that is who I am too. I think when you had saw my article, you probably saw Rainbird Taylor, and then you were like, "Is that Ryan?" So I just wanted to clarify I am the same person because a lot of people, including people that we went to school with, are really like surprised to be like, "Oh, that's you." So yeah, that's who I am. I'm from Ohkay Owingeh Pueblo. I used to live in Santa Fe, split time between Ohkay Owingeh and Santa Fe for at least 20 years or so, but now I'm really more just settling down here for the time being. A little bit about me is that I run a business called Yapopup. Yapopup is a restaurant. We focus on what we call Indigenous Soul Food, and I believe that we can be the bridge between the reservation and what fine dining is right now. And I know that we don't really necessarily serve fine dining, but we have to take baby steps to get to that point. So, a point being is like, people won't try out a specific type of food on this part of the reservation because they're not used to it. So you have to make something that they're familiar with, but that's also going to attract people that aren't used to reservation food. So we've made like quesadilla tacos, but they're normally made with goat or lamb. And my grandmother, she makes a very, very delicious red chili stew. And so we just mix those ingredients in there. So then when people go to try our food out, they're not completely trying something new, but there's something that's there that they're not, familiar with. And then there's also something there that they are familiar with. So I think that that's just the genesis of what my business could be. Um, I don't run it by myself. My girlfriend helps me out. This is basically her business too. We've established that already. So if you ever see us working and she's bossing me around, don't be too surprised when that happens. I think that's just the basic intro of what I could say about my business, but we can go more in detail as we go into the interview.
Yeah, so before I get into some of these other questions, I'm wondering if you can just I know the answer, but where did your pop-up come from?
Yeah.
Like where did that name originate from?
Yeah, that's actually a really cool story. So, anybody that really knows me knows that my mentor is Raymond Naranjo. He's from Santa Clara. This is going to be kind of a lengthy answer, but I think it's a cool story to tell. So, he has basically changed my life. I was jumping from job to job. I was never consistent with anything. I just couldn't find any consistency in any job. I was just always slacking around and whatever. So he was hired at one of the jobs I got as a bartender. And the lady who hired me, she actually is still one of my best friends to this day. I was just like, look at this, like, this white lady just trying to like tell me that she hired another native guy and that we should just be friends because of that. I was like, that's kind of rude just to just tell somebody that. Well, it turns out she was right. Like we actually are like very, very good friends. We talk pretty much every single day. If we don't talk, we'll send each other a meme or something like that. So I started working for him for his business back in 2018. And then we started working together in restaurants in 2019, and then periodically up until COVID. And right before that, I had gotten a job at the Four Seasons, and then we got furloughed. And I was like, I felt like I was finally hitting my stride where I wasn't going to be jumping from job to job or anything like that. And then once I got to that point where I was furloughed, I was like, really, like, I was just getting to this point. What do I do? And he was like, well, sell food. Like, that's the one thing that you could do during COVID. It was like all these restrictions and stuff, but the one thing you could do is you could sell takeout food. And he's like, you can go sell it on the reservation because they can't really like do anything about that. It's federal land. So I was like, oh, that's actually a very good idea. So we did one, like it was like a pop-up, is what we call it, So we were doing these little pop-ups. They're basically just glorified food sales, like nothing crazy. But we had a really cool system. Like we downloaded Square POS, and it was a free app that you can download. A lot of people use it for like selling like clothes and stuff online. There's a restaurant template that you can use too. And I created a website, and I was able to use like tap to pay. They could use credit cards on their phones. They could use Samsung Pay, Apple Pay, whatever they wanted to do, however they wanted to pay, it was there for them. And I felt like whenever I would go to a food sale here on my Pueblo or any other reservation, like people were just not understanding that this is the next wave of how we're trying to accept payments or how people were accepting payments. So it's like I would notice a lot of people were missing out on so much money just mainly because they didn't have a way to accept credit cards. So I created the website, and I didn't really think it was going to be that big of a deal. And I opened it up, I posted on Instagram saying, "Hey, I'm selling this food today for $10. If anybody's interested, this is the website." I like linked a QR code, all these different things. And so many people were asking me to buy food. Like I was honestly just trying to make like 200, $300 just to see. I probably walked away from that with a lot like $600 or $700, something like that. But I really wasn't excited about the money. I was more excited about the fact that people were actually genuinely interested in something like this. And I think the biggest thing was accessibility and how easy it was. My website was very user friendly. So there wasn't any like, hiccups that people had to go through. It was just two steps. You put your credit card information and it got saved and it was encrypted, and you could buy it, and you could go to a reservation, pick it up, or someone would deliver it to you for an extra fee, just depending on where you were at. And a lot of people were like, "This is really cool. Like, I've never been able to buy stuff like this." So then we were selling things like margarita pizza. I don't know if you remember, but we used to go to DeVargas together, of course, too. And there was a Speedy Two Pizza right across where in that little shopping plaza in Santa Fe. Well, I used to frequent that place a lot with my grandma, and I loved the margarita pizza there. So I was like, oh, let's just sell this. And all these people would come to the res and they're buying margarita pizzas for $10. And then the next week we were doing like a barbecue sale. We were selling fried chicken with corn and baked mac and cheese and yams and stuff like that. Again, for $10. It was these huge plates. They were like ridiculous size plates. And I was noticing that we were kind of plateauing after a while, after like the first month or so. We were still doing good, but it was just like we were never going higher than what we thought. Like we always thought there was going to be some more momentum to that. So finally, I asked my boss, I'm like, why are we not doing like as like more like why are we not doing more numbers than we thought we would do? And he was like, well, you're just kind of selling from your basic Instagram, like your regular profile. And it was true. It was just me, like basically on Facebook, like, hey guys, I'm selling food. And he's like, as wonderful you are, he's like, you're not that entertaining for when people want to like see more about what the food is about. So he's like, you need to come up with a business theme, you need to come up with the actual logo and the theme that you want to go with. He's like, you don't have to worry about all the three things now. You just need to come up with a name. And I was like, all right. So he literally, it was like a movie. We went into his house, we sat down in his kitchen, and we were sitting there, and I was like, well, what should I come up with? Like, what should I do? And he was like, think about something that's personal to you and think about what you're doing now. And that's like basically the genesis of what I was telling you, right? Like what people are used to eating and what they're not used to eating, and then combining that together. So um I was like, well, give me an example of what you're talking about. He goes, well, what's something from your village that's very well known? Popeye. Popeye is the leader of the Pueblo Revolt. In 1680, he gathered every single Pueblo to go and revolt against the Spaniards in Santa Fe. And we were thinking about that, and he was like, Popeye, Popeye. It was so funny. We were just sitting there, just kind of like saying his name back and forth. And then we are like, well, we're a pop up. We're like, Popeye pop up, pop up. We just kept coming with all these like stupid little names. And then he was like, what if you say it backwards? And I think he meant to say pop up backwards, and I don't know how that would have worked out. And he was when I said you pop backwards, and I said Pope backwards, and I said you pop. And then he was like, you pop. I was like, you pop up. And we were like, yes, that was so like it was so cool. It was like one of the funniest moments I've ever had in my life. And that was like 2 minutes into us trying to guess what the name should be. And I've never changed it since. And then So people ask us what the name means. It's just Pope, his name spelled backwards. And then since we're a pop-up restaurant and we pop up all over the country, we wanted to make sure that we were honoring that. So even though now we have a restaurant space, we do travel. We still go to like different cities and stuff and do different events and whatnot. And people always ask us what the name means. And when they find that out too, they're like, that's really, really cool. Like, we're honoring my leader from my Pueblo. It's part of the business. Like people have to know about the Pueblo revolt. So if they want to know my name, and it's really, really cool. I've also, I've come into like speed bumps. Like, sometimes I've had people that were like, hey, you should change your name because you can't pronounce it. And I was like, wow, that was, a lot of people would get offended at that. And like, kind of, I was a little bit offended, but at the same time, I'm like, all right, this is really cool because if people are asking you to change your name because they can't pronounce it, that means you're doing the right thing. I mean, the whole history of our people, Mexican or Native American, like we're all indigenous, and so much of our history or the words that we say today in English are because it was mispronounced. You know what I mean? Like guacamole, for example, it's actually supposed to be guacamole, but because the Spaniards couldn't pronounce it, we say guacamole now. And like, I didn't want my business name to be compromised because of that. So I'm like, this is cool. So now I have a business name. Now I can tell people what it is, and they're going to get used to it. Like that's basically the thought that I've had, the thought that everybody else has had, and it's just been really cool to see like over the last year or so, just the amount of people that have actually supported us and really been interested to learn about how the business started and where it's going. So yeah, that's how we got our name. I'm sorry, it's a little bit lengthy, but I wanted to just kind of tell the full story so people aren't like, well, I thought you said it was like this and like that. So I'm like, no, no, this is exactly how the story went, and I'd rather people hear from me instead of from someone else.
No, it wasn't too lengthy. I think it gives a good kind of intro to kind of what your origin story and how you got started. And I think it's a really clever name because it's almost like you pop up, like your pop up, you know?
Exactly,
So
exactly. And it's
it
funny.
makes sense to me.
And when you say it on Siri or like, any of the speech to text apps or whatever, you'll say you pop up and it corrects to your pop up, and everybody's like, that's what it corrects to. And it's like, yeah, it's kind of cool. But eventually I think that when we get a lot more popular, it'll start changing to your pop up. So that's just, a little speed bump that we have to deal with right now, but it's still pretty cool.
Um, when you were like putting your website together, did you just like do that all on your own or did you have some guidance? Because I think sometimes that's a little bit intimidating for some entrepreneurs. They don't know how to do it.
It was, yes, I did it by myself, but it's not intimidating in the fact that, well, for one, I'd worked in restaurants so much, and the main point of sale system that they use in restaurants is Square. So, every single place I'd worked at, let's say at least 90% of the places that I worked at before were using that point of sale system. So, and I knew that you could also download the app on your phone and take credit card payments or take tap to pay on there. So that was already something I knew about. And then as far as building the website, it was like one of the easiest things ever. Like I don't want to make it sound like I was over there like coding and doing a bunch of stuff. I was literally going on the website or the Square site at first, and then they offer you templates. It's like when you go to Google Docs and you can just choose like if you want to make a resume, type of format or whatever. It was just like that, and so you could select whether if you wanted it to be more of a takeout style restaurant or if you wanted to be more of a sit down style restaurant. And I think the mistake that I made at first was I didn't really agree to like through that, so I just pressed the restaurant style one. Um, but then I switched over to the takeout style, and that's when everything started to just kind of generate more, more revenue for me. And I think the time it took to build it took like a course of 3 days, but it really only took about 4 or 5 hours just because I was in the middle of helping out my family with a bunch of different things. I also, one of my best friends had passed away, like in the middle of when I started this business in August. So that took a bunch of time out of my month that I was doing that. But if I'm really thinking about it now, if I had just put all my effort into one sit down session, it would have taken me about 3 or 4 hours. And that's not even like hard part. It was just putting the menu together, putting pictures, finding the theme. And I think a big part of finding the theme was at the first part, I didn't really have anything that I was trying to do. I was just trying to sell food. I was trying to sell stuff that was that you couldn't find in Espanola. You know what I mean? Like people were like, we're coming to the res and you guys are doing fried rice on here. You guys are selling chicken wings. So I wanted to keep that little vibe going. But we slowly figured out about the indigenous soul food way later on. So yeah, that's the way I can answer that was the website was easy to build. It wasn't super difficult. If anybody wants to take that route, especially anybody that's indigenous and they can't find the resources, it's like they're right in front of you. Like literally, you just have to make the effort. Like I don't think that. I think actually I do think that a big problem with Native people right now is not that we haven't acknowledged. It's not that we haven't acknowledged what's happened to us, but it's like we're still using that as a crutch so far into now where we can make ourselves give ourselves an even playing field, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So long story short, making a website like you did isn't as intimidating as some people might think it is. You just got to get on
Definitely.
there, choose a template, and it's pretty straightforward. It walks you through
Yeah.
it.
And it's free. It's free. Like you all you have to do is go to Square, download the app, and you're there. Like you have nothing else to be intimidated by. Just go out there, build a website, whatever you do. Like it doesn't have to be food. If you're selling jewelry, if you're taking pictures, just go on the website, create a template or find the template. You don't have to create the template. You just have to find it. And
Mhm.
then when I had done that, I had basically about 6 months later, I got in contact with the Mexico Community Capital, and they had been asking people like, "Well, how did you get your website so far along?" I'm like, "Just through Square," and they were like, "Oh, hey, well, we have like a bunch of Square executives that work with the program." So everybody else was just starting out, and I had already been selling food on my platform for like 6 to 7 months. So they gave me a premium membership that I've been renewing for the last 2 years. It's cool. It's like a $400 value, but just because I took the time and effort to do it myself for free, I've been given like $800 worth of the premium membership for the last 2 years. So yeah, long story short, go out there, make the effort, just stop wasting your time expecting someone to like come and do it for you because honestly it's just not how it's going to go. Like, and I think the big thing, like I said, is that we need to stop complaining about what happened to us so much. Like, yes, what happened to us was terrible, but we're here now. Like, it's the opportunities right in front of us. If I can do it, I feel like anybody else can do it.
Good words of wisdom for sure. Um, so you and is it Chef Ray were sitting
Yes.
and talking about like your name and then you came up with Yapopup.
Mhm.
So from there, is that when you kind of decided to officially incorporate or when did you actually decide like, okay, I'm gonna turn this into a business and I'm really just gonna go all in with this thing?
That's a really good question. Like I said, when I talked to him, he told me the three things that I needed, right? And I was like, that's a lot to come up with. And he was like, okay, the first thing you just need to do is come up with a name, a logo, and a theme. I was like, all right, cool. Came up with the logo or the name, and then I really kind of just messed around with it. Like I was just like making my own logos and stuff, and I was, just doing stuff that I thought was really cool. It wasn't until I met up with the New Mexico Community Capital people that they got me a logo. They got me in touch with an artist that was like, "Hey, I'll do this for you." So he made this logo, this alien kachina that I love. And they're like, "So is that the theme you want?" I'm like, "Yeah, hell yeah!" Like I want my theme to be like a kachina alien, and the reason why I wanted that was because I'm like, well, I think it's cool if we tell people that our food is just like so amazing, like that it's like out of this world, that like basically this is something that nobody's tried. It's alien to people. It's foreign. So, um, I think that when I got the logo back, like I had already had it played out in my mind that I was like, oh, okay, this is starting to turn into something serious. But I didn't take it that serious until I would say I think April or May of 2021. And then I had been in contact with some of like the drive-in movie theaters that they were hosting in Santa Fe. And they were asking to sell food. And that's when the show Reservation Dogs was coming on TV. So the people that were running these drive-in movie theaters, they were actually really good friends with the creator of Reservation Dogs, and they were asking for native caterers or vendors, and they reached out to me, and that was like our real first taste of actually being in the public because, mind you, we were just selling food at our house or our grandma's house, and we were just on the res, kind of in our own comfort zone. So this is the first time we stepped out of that, and we we were selling like I think it was fry bread and we did tacos and I think we did wings the next weekend after and people were like, this is very, very good. It turns out we had one of the local journalists or food reviewers that was there and she wrote an article about us. I can link that to you in a little bit. She wrote an article about us. She said that our food was just incredibly amazing and that she just wanted to know where she could find us a lot easier instead of having to just wait, like a week apart just to get a hold of us. So we sat down. It was me and my buddy Gabe, and my girlfriend. We were sitting down. We were like, "Hey, I think we could actually do something with this. Like, we've talked about it, but I think we were a little bit scared to kind of jump in fully, And then for about a year and a half, I, still kept a job. I was still working, and up until I think about 8 or 9 months ago, that's when I just took the plunge. I was like, you know what, like I'm gonna just take this on myself. Like I have to take a chance on myself. Nothing else nothing else feels right except for this. And so, like I said, long story short, there was tears of when this or periods when it happened, and I think the first period was just figuring out um how serious it was to me, how good we were doing, and then finally taking that plunge to being like, hey, like this is gonna be my job. Like I'm gonna be my own boss. I think that was the biggest thing was getting bossed around by people that were either not as qualified as me, or if I was in charge and I was trying to tell someone something to do, they were older than me. So they were like, no, we're not going to take your advice. Like, whatever. And I was like, I really don't deserve this anymore. Like, I really have a lot of experience in the kitchen now. I've been, it's not that I'm cocky, but I'm really confident in my abilities now. And I just didn't feel like it was fair to me to be wasting my time with people that weren't respectful of me. No matter how much money I was making, it just wasn't worth it. Like I'm more satisfied with my business. So that's basically the reason why I took the plunge fully.
So how has that been going for you? Like since you took that plunge, how how has it been? Have you encountered any challenges? Like kind of what has that journey since you took that leap of faith been like?
Oh, yeah, it's been difficult, very difficult. Like all these unforeseen problems that I never, like when you go into something that you're not familiar with, you put all these expectations of what's going to happen, but all these other little things start to happen that you never would expect to come out of it. And for example, like when we were selling chicken wings here at my house or at my grandma's house, we would go and we would get these big fryers and we would get oil, right? And we would just, dump the oil in there and then fry it. And then we could dispose of the oil here at the house a lot easier. So then when we started selling wings like at restaurants and stuff, we were realizing that like these food trucks that we were renting out or catering events that we were doing, we didn't have a way to dispose of our stuff correctly. It was just we were foreign to that kind of thing. It was just, little things like that. Or when it came to me having to write a menu, um, I thought that I was a lot further ahead of where I was at the time. So people were asking like, "Hey, well, you do catering, can you write a menu?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." I would write the menu, and they were like, "Oh, like this is yeah, okay, all right." And then like they would give me all these like weird kind of like looks and stuff. So I went up to Chef Ray and I was like, "Hey, I wrote this menu for these people," and they're just kind of they were really interested at first, but they kind of backed off. And he was like, well, "Let me see it." So I gave it to him, and he was like, "Yeah, this is terrible." He's like, "If you don't know how to write a menu, you don't have any idea how to even like word it correctly." And I was like, "Damn!" Like I thought I was right there, and he was just like, ask questions, stupid. Like, it's so funny. Like, we have a really good relationship. So he's always like, we quote The Office and stuff. And Michael Scott tells Dwight, he's like, keep it simple, stupid. And Dwight's like, he tells me it every time, and it always hurts my feelings. So, so he tells me that he's like, keep it simple, stupid. And so Um, this whole time, when I was starting the business, I was like in this mode where like I'm gonna do this by myself. I'm gonna make sure that people know that I did this from the ground up. And like, reality hits you like, for one, why are you trying to do this on your own when you have a dude that literally is your mentor and is going through these exact problems right ahead of you when you could just ask him for this advice, you know? And so I was like, okay, well, how else can you help me out? And he was just giving me, tips and pointers how to make a menu correctly, how to order food correctly, so you're not, stuck with like an overage of food so that you just have to sell it just to make a profit, or so you're not, ordering a little bit of food when you need a ton more, so that you're just sitting there with, with your hands up. I think another problem that would come up was just actually, I wouldn't say another problem. I would just say it's part of the same problem. Was just, I thought that because I wrote or I did the website, that I could do all this by myself, and it just came very, very quickly to me that, I don't need to be acting as independent as I do. Like, a lot of people would kill for this opportunity that I have, but they would kill for even more of the resources that I have, you know, and it didn't make any sense. So I think at first, to answer your question, at first the difficulty was very, very tough. But once I figured out that I don't have to go through this alone, that I don't have to do this all by myself, things have been a lot better. Like it's been a lot easier for me. Even you, like when you reached out to me and you're like, "Is this Ryan? Is this you?" And I was like, "Yeah, what's up, Cecilia?" You're like, "What?" And then I found out what you do, and I'm like, "Wow!" Like this whole time, I could have been networking and reaching out to people, seeing what everybody's been up to, but no, like I've just been focused in my own little bubble and just kind of like being a little bit arrogant to the fact that like I don't need help or anything like that. And I think the big thing, especially with natives, is like doing things on your own and not asking for help. But get rid of that ego. Like if you're trying to be the first of a generation or the first wave of a generation to do something, you can't do it by yourself. Like I'm sorry, like maybe down the line when we're already more well established, some creative can come in and do it on their own because the foundation has already been set. But right now we're not at that position to do that. And I'm pretty sure you see that problem happening a lot too, and with Chef Ray, he just offers me so much help that I can't be more grateful to him, because he's just like I said, keep it simple, stupid. Whenever I have a problem, I call him up. I'm like, "Hey, have you come into this issue or this or that issue?" He's like, "Oh yeah," and he knows exactly. He's like, "Back in July of 2 years ago, I did this and that." And I'm like, "Oh, I could have just been asking you." And he's like, "Yeah, stupid." So it's been kind of cool to know that I have those resources, but um, it has been difficult. But like I said, when you let go of the ego and you realize that you're not alone, everything's so much easier.
I'm trying to get Chef Ray on the show.
I'll
He's
get him.
well,
I'll get him.
he wants to, but I called him and left him a message before the holidays, and
Hmm.
so I probably just need to follow up with him. But it would be cool to have him, and then it would be cool to have both of you at the same time, maybe to talk about, I don't know. I think it's really cool how he's been mentoring you, even though you both have separate businesses. It's really cool to see that collaboration, that
Yeah.
mentorship, and less, because I mean, business is competitive, but it's like it doesn't always have to be. You can collaborate, you can
Yeah.
uplift each other.
Yeah.
So that's really cool to see and to hear.
I'm glad that you said that, because there's a fine line between like, doing what we're trying to do together and then individually. Like we've talked about this so many different times as well. Like there is times where we're running our own individual businesses that we kind of have to look at each other as competition. But when it comes when we're out of the kitchen, I don't think that that's even an issue. I think that like for him to be my mentor and for him to be receiving the awards that he's receiving at this point in time and the success that he's getting right now, um, it sets a target for me. It raises the bar for me to be able to be like, oh, this is what I could do. This is what I can do. And truthfully, if I'm not even trying to become better than him, then that's like honestly so disrespectful to what he's taught me at this point in time, because it's like I'm not even his kid. I'm not related to him in any, way, shape, or form. but he takes his time out of his day to just contact me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm more a part of his family now than I've been a part of anybody else's family. Like, it's just so, it's really cool. Like, when I think of Minko and I think about the stuff that it represents, um, I don't I don't think of them like as like another business. I think of them just as an extension of what the Yapopup is now. But at the end of the day, like I did say, like when we're doing events together, yeah, we're definitely going to be like, oh, I did this in sales or I did that in sales. But it's at the end of the day, it's really cool because I truthfully, I we can both see it too. Like I can see him being like when we're doing events together, I can see him over there. He's living his dream out right now. Like he's working with his son as his sous chef, and his whole family's in on the business. They have their shirts that say Minko. They have their truck with his logo on it and everything like that. And then he's looking at us and he's like, wow, like I taught this guy all this stuff and he's actually putting it to use. So I think we're very grateful for each other. And like I said, we're both pretty competitive people. So at the end of the day, it would be a disrespectful type of act to just not at least try to be better than him. You know what I mean? It would be kind of sad if he taught me all this information and I was just kind of half-assing it the whole way through. But yeah, he's a very big mentor to me, and I don't ever try to shy away from the fact that like I would not be here without his help.
I think that's really cool and like really powerful, just from what I've heard him talk about. And then um, like, yes, you guys have food businesses, but I feel like there's kind of a deeper underlying desire to like mentor and uplift each other as well as other people in your community. Because I can see the ripple effect from him, mentoring you. And you've mentioned the desire of wanting to like figure out how to work with university students or something to like help mentor them and teach them how to start their own food businesses.
Mhm.
So like you said, there's always going to be that level of competition, but if you go about it in the right way, it can also be like uplifting for each other,
Yeah,
and kind of like man supporting man, food business supporting food business,
exactly.
indigenous.
Native helping it
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
native supporting native natives. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I also thought that it was like, a big thing for me really, and I don't even I should have mentioned this earlier was when we first started truly working together. I was his sous chef at the Angel Fire Country Club. Um, we were both living in Espanola, right, at the time. So I was like, well, what are we gonna do? Like, how is this gonna work out? He was like, well, we're gonna drive there every single day. I'm like, what? Like Espanola to Angel Fire, that's 2 hours minimum. And it was like winter. So we were driving. He would pick me up at my house. He would pick me up at my house every single morning. He would always be here on time. That's one of his things. He's always on time. Like it's truly annoying how like how what is the term that when you're always on time? I can't punctual. It's truly annoying how punctual he is. Like he'll always be here on time, but he would pick me up and then we would go, on our route to Angel Fire. And the first like week or so, we would just like chit chat and whatnot. After you do the small talk, you start going into deeper conversations. So it would be conspiracy theories, all these different things, and then he would get real, real serious on me where, he would be telling me about like his story. It kind of transitioned into him being like, I want to start my own business eventually. Like I want to have my own truck. And it was like the first time that I had really had someone that was like about that. You know what I mean? Like when you grow up on a reservation, like people have dreams, they talk about it, but they never execute it. Like they always talk about something. He's the first person in my life to be like he spoke everything into existence. Like I could go to his house right now and his son is going to culinary school. He has a truck that says Minko on it. His whole family's in on the job. A cool little fact when we first got to know each other, I went to his mom's house to go for feast day to go eat at his mom's house. I went to the kitchen to wash my hands and I'm like looking at one of the pictures. It's only one picture in the kitchen and it's his mom with my grandma. And I'm like, what's my Saya doing there?
That's crazy.
He's like, your Saya, that's your Saya? I'm like, yeah, that's my Saya. My Saya has taught me she's the one who gave me the foundation to love cooking. So it's just truly interesting to see how everything is so connected. You know what I mean? Like my Satya and apparently his mom, they used to teach together at the Head Start in Santa Clara. So they became like best friends. And they it's funny because I was trying her red chili stew and I'm like, this tastes just like my grandma's. And nobody's tastes as good as my Satya's. And I'm like, wow, like that's so cool. So I think that moment was kind of like, wow, like this is, like I never wanted to be like cliche or be like everything happens for a reason, but that was like, wow, it was starting to make sense that this was going to be my career path. I think a lot more people around me realized that a lot quicker than I did, but yeah, it was just really cool because like, like I said, going back, he would tell me these stories and I would be like, yeah, okay, like cool, like that's pretty interesting. But then, all these years later, he spoke into existence and now I can actually use that as a reference for myself to be like, hey, like just because I'm saying stuff and people are like kind of not understanding the vision that I have or they'll laugh at it, for instance, that's really nothing that discourages me. And I really can't get offended at people that kind of laugh at the things that I say because it's like honestly, they've never seen anything like that before. And that's why people like him, people like me are in this position so that we can be like, hey, the opportunity's there. Like if I can do this, you can do that. So yeah, like I said, it's just been really cool to have him and his whole entire family by my side. And we're always like messing around with each other, sending each other memes and stuff too. So it's never just like serious stuff. Like we're all like a family. So yeah, I'm very grateful for them.
That's awesome. And truly like a full circle.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
like what do they call it? Like divine connection.
Intervention.
Yeah, or something like that. Just kind of along the notes of, like your relationship with Chef Ray and your community. Um, how do you see kind of like at least having the opportunity to pursue entrepreneurship? And in your case, it's like a food business, but entrepreneurship in general, how do you see that? And like having access to those resources and just like the potential to have that dream. How do you see that impacting like your community of Ohkay Owingeh, but then also other Indigenous communities in general?
That's funny you say that because obviously I texted you a couple days ago and asked you if it was okay if I talked about a certain thing, and I didn't know how to transition into this right now. But I'm glad you asked that. So, as an entrepreneur, there's a period of my life that when I started the business, for example, that I was just kind of trying out things here and there. Like, I would just try to follow a mold that all these other entrepreneurs were doing. It didn't matter if it was food, anything. It just as long as they're doing something that interested me, that was what I was doing at the time. I can say now that I was lost, but I wasn't like wandering around. I had an idea of what I was wanting to do, but I didn't know how to get there. And so the big thing that really clicked for me personally, and again, I'm not endorsing this or condoning it or whatever, but alcoholism is a really big deal on the reservation, right? Like it kills off so many different natives at so many different times and at such a high rate that I was drinking at the time like really heavily and I wasn't doing anything that would benefit me or my career. So I had been doing a bunch of research and also I was really really sad at the time. Like I should have been happy that I had a business that was starting to grow, that was getting traction, but I was just obviously associating myself with a depressant all the time and wondering why I felt depressed the whole time. So um I had talked to a couple buddies of mine and these are people that I'm like really, really respectful for and I look up to them because they're very well educated. And I would ask them like, hey, like I want to expand my mind, but I'm kind of stuck in this like, this little hole that I'm in that I've dug myself in, but how do I get myself out? And it was funny because like whenever you're searching for an answer, I feel like if you're asking all these different people or if you're reading a bunch of different books and you keep saying the same common denominator everywhere, that you kind of have to take that advice. And the common denominator that I kept hearing from everyone was psychedelics and just microdosing and stuff like that. And I was honestly like terrified of that because I've heard of different people's stories and how they've had like bad experiences and whatnot. But I was like, all right, you know what? Like, you have to go in with a clear mind. I had tried out the float tank therapy, and that was really cool, but it didn't really get me to where I wanted to go. Like, it made me relaxed. I felt like it got me like halfway there, but I needed something to give me that extra push. So I did the float tank therapy for a couple months. And then finally I was like, you know what, I'll try it out. So I microdosed, and I felt really, really like it was getting me to where I needed to go actually, without, and I don't want to make it sound like I was like seeing like illusions or I was seeing like spiders crawl or whatever. It was me being able to confront a lot of things that I had been pushing down for so long. Like, I knew that I was drinking a lot, but I wasn't confronting myself. I wasn't even able to look myself in the mirror and be like, cut it out. Like, cut your shit out. Like, it was just not there. Um, so I did the microdose, and then I tried a regular dose of just psychedelics. We won't go into which specific one, but I had this like really, really amazing experience, like truly amazing. Like, and I won't go into full detail, but for instance, I saw a lot of like, deja vu type of things where I was in the Bay. I was cooking at some really nice kitchen, and this song came on that reminded me of my buddy who passed away, the one that I mentioned back in August of 2020. And I saw his memorial card there, and I was like, that's so weird. Like, I didn't know what it meant, and then I kept seeing all these other opportunities that I had not gotten yet. And I think after that experience, I never touched it again. I never messed around with it. Again, I don't condone it, but that's just something that helped me out. Um, 6 or 7 months later, all these things that I was picturing, and now that I was not drinking heavily or anything like that anymore, all these things were starting to happen. And then I got this huge offer to go to San Francisco to work in this really, really amazing kitchen and to lead an event of like 200 people. Um, for instance, there was like $400 or $500 a bottle of wine just on the table for your grabbing. Just people were, that's how nice the event was. Well, towards the end of the event, we had done such an amazing job. The song that reminded me of my buddy came on, and I remember I had his memorial card right next to me, and like the song came on, and I like was like, oh my God, this is what I just pictured like 6 or 7 months back. And I think that was like the like a turning point for me where I was like, holy crap, like this is amazing. Like, I'm able to like to see what I could be doing. I could see what my potential is. And as an entrepreneur, I was finally thinking like that instead of just being a restaurant owner, if that makes any sense. Like, I was like, oh wow, I can do this and that. And so I got a lot more confidence for myself. I was really interested in seeing who I could reach out to do pop-ups with. I mean, it's literally my business name to pop up. It's Yapopup. So I'm like, why am I like shying away from that? And I had always wanted to manifest going to New York to cook out there. I always wanted to go to LA, to Chicago, to like Portland, and just do all these different events, but I just didn't know how to get there. And I started emailing these restaurants, emailing different establishments, and I figured to myself, if I could just message at least 100 people, at least one will respond back, right? And I got so many different responses back saying like, yes, come out here, come do an event with us. We have no idea what Native American food is even like, so maybe you could be the first one to come out here. And since that date in October, not October, since that date of 2022, it was like November when I saw when I was in San Francisco. I've traveled to like I think 9 different cities or something like that. And I've traveled over like 30,000 miles. And I know that's not a lot, but just seeing where I was at before and after that experience, my business has started to really flourish in terms of financial gain and in terms of what it means to my Pueblo. Like, my Pueblo, people are so proud of me here. And like, that's honestly my biggest accomplishment. Like, I spent so many different phases of my life trying to just be accepted, like I don't know, I forget what rapper says it, but it's like if you're like biracial, like I feel like I was too Spanish for the native kids and then too native for the Spanish kids. And um I could never find like my calling, you know what I mean? I was also chasing my dad's approval so much, and then it just clicked. Like everything was like people were like, hey, dude, you're out there in New York, you're cooking, like that's so crazy. They're like, you were just selling food here on the res like two or three like years ago, and now you're traveling across the country from one city to another. Can I work for you? People were like, I want to start working for you. I want to learn how you're cooking all this food, how you're doing it, how you're meeting all these people. Um, and then my dad, like I had always tried to emulate what my dad was doing. He's a baseball player, he's a baseball coach now. So I always wanted to go down that path just to make him happy. And I had tried, baseball out in college and stuff, and it just didn't work out. And I was like, wow, I can never make him happy. I can never make him like satisfied to the point where I feel like I'm actually doing something good for myself. All these years later, my dad and my Pueblo, they're like extremely proud of me because they're like, you're doing something that nobody else is doing. People are recognizing you. You're in articles. We have celebrities that are coming to Yapopup now to like try out food. My favorite TV show is The Bear, and we've had two of the stars from The Bear come to eat at the restaurant like 2 or 3 weeks in a row. So it's just been really cool to see like just basically the confidence that I've had after all these experiences. Everything is trial and error, but I think it's important to pinpoint where things start to change for you so you can either get away of the past of that or you can start to just gain some more momentum from that moment that you realized everything changed.
From what it sounds like, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're like the experience that you had kind of maybe helped you deal with some like past traumas, and like confront the alcoholism and all of that. And then once you were able to confront that, then you were able to actually like reach your full potential. And I've had conversations with some of our liaisons, and one thing that a lot of people don't talk about that actually serves as a huge barrier, especially in Indigenous communities, is that like historical trauma, not just the historical trauma, but then there's also like family trauma and just like a lot. So, but some of our liaisons have also expressed that like entrepreneurship has been able to serve as a means of healing from that trauma. Would you say that's kind of been your
Mhm.
experience?
Yeah, well, like I said, my girlfriend, she's a co-owner in the business as well, and she's also Pueblo. So like it's kind of interesting because we were talking about this last night, where, like you said, there's a lot of family drama and trauma that goes on in so many different parts of all the pueblos and reservations and stuff that people don't talk about. I don't want to go too full in detail, but I mean, you can already assume, like when you're trapped inside, when you're literally in a reservation, when you're trapped inside somewhere like that, that you can literally walk to a gas station and get alcohol, or you can walk to a casino and go gamble your money away. That kind of creates, all these different unforeseen, problems that just that stuff creates. Like I said, alcoholism is a huge thing for reservations. People don't realize what that creates for other generations. It creates a lot of stuff like abuse and things um that people don't know about, and it's really tough to be able to talk about those things sometimes. But I think um with that being said, I like to think of food as like, how can I describe it, as not like a therapeutic type of thing, but it's more like something like literally you're feeding your soul. And I feel like right now, people have a really mixed idea of what Native American food really is. Like people think that fry bread is like a traditional dish, but it's like really like that's maybe it's traditional in the last 50 to 100 years, but that's not something that our ancestors were. They weren't frying up, fry bread with spam and green chili. Like that's just something they have to accept. So I think yes, putting people in a position where they're able to eat healthier food, where they're able to feel good about the food that they're eating and being educated about it, and helping them realize like we're trapped in this cycle of, like I said, we can go right down the road, we can go gamble, we can go buy liquor, but we can't go somewhere and learn our language. Like we can't go somewhere and just get these cooking tips from anybody. And I want to change that. I want to be able to like offer something that people can get. And with my business right now, that's a big thing for me because I'm forced to be able to explain what Yapopup means, and with that comes having to explain who Pope is, and then having to explain what the pop-up part means, and then it's we're describing our past, our present, and our future just in that conversation alone. And with the food, we're telling a story with the food with every single dish that we have. Like literally everything that's on our menu right now has a story. The tacos, I told you, they're from my grandmother's feast day stew. People are like, "Oh my God, like I've heard of these quesadilla tacos, but it has feast day stew recipe inside." Like that's one of the craziest things ever. Um, with the chicken wings, honestly, I just wanted an excuse to sell chicken wings, but the story behind that is that that's what got me to love food. Like when I first tried out my first chicken wing, it sounds so stupid, but when I first tried out my first chicken wing, I had like this moment of like, oh my God, like this is so good. Like, and I've always wanted to basically give that feeling that I received when I first tried out any type of amazing dish for the first time. I want to give that back to people, you know, I want to give it back to them to where they're feeling good about themselves, you know, like, and it's not something that's temporary. Like I said, with alcohol, you can drink as much as you want to drink, but there's a period where you're just like, you know, you, on the come down and you don't feel good about yourself. I feel like when you have a really good meal with someone that you love, whether it's your partner, your parent, a friend of yours, you're leaving that place and you're like, wow, that was so good. And you're thinking about it. You're constantly thinking about it, right? And you're giving these people this feeling that you can't get with anybody else. And I think that with food, it's the only medium as an artist that you can directly give to someone physically. Like you can physically touch that and feel that. Like music is a close second. You can hear it, but you can't feel music. You can feel the food you're eating. Like you can, you know what I mean? Like when you're eating something that you love, it's just like, oh my God, like I would kill to have this again. And I think that's a huge thing for my business, that we don't shy away from the fact that we're trying to become the best. We're trying to become something that's not really heard of. We're trying to become something that's alien to, you know, what New Mexico is. And I think even going towards New Mexican food, you know, New Mexican food, it's amazing. I'm not taking anything away from that, but I feel like there's too many places you can go to get a green chili or a red chili or Christmas smothered burrito. Like there's too many places serving that. Like we need actual indigenous representation. We need someone that's actually showing you how to make fresh corn tortillas. We need someone that's actually showing you like chicos, pozole, you know, different things like, you know, that actually feed your soul and educate you. I feel like that's just something that nobody else is doing it. If you have a story behind it, people are generally going to follow you because they're just interested in that type of thing. People really love to learn, you know, like, and even if they don't admit it, like learning something really cool, like a new fact, it's honestly one of those things that like makes me happy. Like when I was learning about that Oaxaca mole and Oaxaca guacamole term, I told so many people that, and people were like, "That's so cool." So I think, like I said, you know, just educating people, giving the feeling that I've received so many different times with the food that I've eaten from different chefs, from different restaurants that are highly acclaimed. I want to give that feeling back, and I want to make sure that people know that I can be a resource for them, and I can also help them through situations like, you know, if they're drinking a lot or if they just have some other substance abuse problem that, you know, it makes sense. Like you don't have to feel sorry for the position you're in because we're kind of made to fail in this situation, you know, in a reservation, the chances of someone making it out are so little that I think that when that person or when those people do make it out, you can increase your chances of that by going back to your community and offering that type of help to them.
One thing that I've always been impressed by, just in the few conversations we've had since reconnecting, is your knowledge of like the history and the origins of different foods. I was just like, dang, he's so knowledgeable about that type of
Yeah.
stuff that, most people don't like have no idea of where this food came from or originated from or how did this come about. And you're very knowledgeable on that, which I think contributes to like the way you're able to prepare and put your dishes together.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to give you that compliment. I
Thank
think
you.
it's really cool.
Yeah, like I said, I get that literally from Chef Ray. Like if it's not from him directly on the trips that we make to go to work to Angel Fire, he would put on audiobooks And he'd be like, "Do you like to listen to audiobooks?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is the first time that I would ever get in a car with someone that we would like instead of jamming out to music, we would just stay there and we'd listen to these they're called the great courses on Audible, and they're like these 20-hour books." And there's this guy, Ken Albala, he's a chef and a professor in California, and he just rants, he just goes on and on about all these different foods, and I'm just like, wow, like I would love to get to that point. And obviously you don't just get there right away, but you learn these little, tips and tricks and stuff that a lot of people, don't normally put together. Like for example, spaghetti, is a huge thing in Italy, but that's not even traditional, Italian food when you really think of it. Like they just barely started eating that like 200 years ago because the Portuguese and stuff were able to have this huge trading, they had like a lot of ships and stuff, so they're trading a lot of noodles and stuff from Japanese and Chinese people. So like they just needed to get rid of all these noodles, and they gave it to Italy, and Italy came up with like spaghetti and stuff like that. And like, you know what I mean? That's what I mean. Like if you really want to learn about the history of your food or your people's food, I think you have to be willing to accept the fact that everything you were told was probably not true, but not like intentionally. Like a lot of the grandmas here, like the Satyas or some of my aunties, like when I try to tell them about specific foods, they're like, "Oh no, like that's not the right way." And you're like, "Yeah, like do you really think that people were eating chicken salad in our villages like in the 1500s?" Like I doubt that that was what was going on. Like meat in general to my ancestors was such a delicacy that when we ate that, it was just like, okay, it was probably once or twice a year. And for the rest of that time, we were eating vegetables, you know what I mean? Like squash and corn and all these different superfoods that are basically wiped out from our cuisine now. So you have to be able to reintroduce those things, but reintroduce them in a more interesting way, because the way that people do it now, it's not that interesting, you know what I mean? And it's like they don't know why they're not getting the attention that they want to get. But it's like to really change the scene of how people look at food and how they eat and digest it, you can't just be like, "Oh, here, try this, it's good for you." Like that's a terrible, terrible way to advertise your food. Like you're gonna fail 10 times out of 10. So that's why I tell people like yourself and everybody else, like you have to tell a story with everything. You have to be able to be knowledgeable about the food you're serving. Like if people ask me, like some guy came up to me the other day, I was talking about the same conversation with another guest, and this guy, he was a little bit drunk. He came up to me and he's like, "So tell me the history of chicken wings." And I was like, "Oh, okay." In the 50s, this lady was working at the Anchor Bar in Buffalo, New York. Her son came home and he wanted a snack for him and his friends from college, but all she had, because the bar sold out, was chicken wings that they were using for stock. So she threw them in the fryer, and all she had was Frank's hot sauce. So she just tossed them together and she gave him that with blue cheese. And that's how buffalo chicken wings are born. And he was like, "What? How do you know that?" I was like, "Because I tell you, like, you have to be knowledgeable about the food that you serve. Like, you have to be aware of all these different things, because people, like, they'll truly respect you if you can answer a question like that, uh, as opposed to someone like, if you go to a restaurant, you're like, I don't think anybody's just going to be like, "So how did the burrito start?" But say if you ask someone that question and they were like, "The burrito started and this and there, and this is how it came to be," you'd be like, "Wow, I will never question this person again." Like I can truly feel comfortable knowing that someone loves their dish if they just talk about food like that, or any entrepreneur that talks about their field the way that I've seen other people talk about their field.
So this next question is probably going to be my second to last question that I have for you.
Okay.
Um, but what are your goals like for the next couple of years for your business? Where would you like to see yourself with your business, but then maybe do you like have a bigger vision for what you want to accomplish?
Definitely, definitely. That's such a great question. So, speaking of that, like I said, I've also kind of wanted to put myself at the forefront of these different um, events, experiences. One of the things that really bothers me is when it doesn't happen so much more now, and I think it's just because I'm vocal about it. Like, I am not going to do this if you talk to me like that. One of the things that really bothers me and kind of pisses me off is like when you introduce anybody that's like a native entrepreneur, they're like, oh, and we have native chef Ryan Taylor here, and they don't even blink twice about it. But it's like if you had an African American chef and you're all, we have a black chef here today, you'd be like, what? Like, what is it? What does their race have to do with anything? Like that, you know what I mean? And I noticed the indigenous community does that a lot, where they're like, we came to try you because you're indigenous. And it's like you can tell someone has a different intention when they're like, oh yeah, like we want to try like an indigenous place out. But it's like they just came there just because I was indigenous. It's like, yeah, I know that I'm representing our people, but like you should come try me out because I have decent food, like not just because of who what my race is, you know? And so I think with that being said, a lot of people have tried to put me in this little like what do they put me in a bottle where they're like, oh yeah, you're a native chef and this and that. And I'm like, no, dude, I'm just a chef that's native. Like I also don't want to try to be like one of those people that's like, I'm the best native this and that out there. Because at the end of the day, I mean, how sad is that I'm just trying to limit myself and my potential to just my race group? Like what if there's some other dude that's part of like another race group or ethnic group and he's just like miles ahead of me because his mentality is that he's not trying to be the best Latino chef, he's trying to become the best chef in the whole world. So with that being said, there's a lot of events that I've been doing recently that have been a lot more higher end than they were when I started off. And so I talked to Chef Ray, and he was like, well, "Why don't we do this event together at Indian Market?" And I was like, "Which event are you talking about?" He's like, "The fashion show dinner." And the fashion show, for Swaya is huge. Like for people that don't know, the Indian Market in Santa Fe has been rated by Forbes as the number one art market in the world, um, by far. And 250,000 people come in annually just for that art market. And it's like, me and you both know Santa Fe has a population of like 75,000 people maximum. So during that weekend, it's just crazy. Like you can't find a hotel, you can't find an Airbnb. Like if you get it too late, you're gonna have to be driving from Taos or Albuquerque just to be around that space. Um, so me and Chef Ray have been talking about this for a while because we both want to put ourselves at the forefront of being like this, instead of just being these native chefs, we're gonna be like, okay, you're gonna look at us like that. We're gonna come a lot harder and make you realize that we're not just limited to being native chefs. So yesterday we were supposed to have our podcast yesterday, but I got this call from the convention center in Santa Fe, and they actually approved us to be a preferred vendor for Swaya. So we'll be able to we're going to be doing all these higher end events at the convention center this year. We're going to be traveling a lot more. Right now, I'm going to be doing some cooking classes at Columbia in New York. I'll be catering for their powwow that they have annually. Um, I'm in talks with Stanford to cater for their powwow. And I'm also part of the James Beard Foundation. And I just recently got accepted into the rapper Joey Badass. He's starting an entrepreneurship program for men of color. I was the only Native American selected for that program. I think they had like 5,000 applicants and only 20 of us got selected. So I get to work with this group called Ghetto Gastro out of New York. They actually have their products are sold inside Target nationwide, and they also cater for the Oscars. So, with that being said, my plans are just, not obviously just to keep expanding, but expanding with an intention. Like I literally think that um I can truly become like somebody that, when I die, like people are gonna have like this huge impact, like wow, like that person left this world in a much much better place. Like it might sound selfish, but like when I die, I really want people to like hurt when I go, because like if you don't if I'm not leaving that, it's like what did I do for people to even care about what I did? Like if I'm not even putting that type of energy out there, um what am I doing, so my goals are to, obviously kill these events that I'm doing this next year. I want to be able to host major, major events, like higher end events. And I would like my biggest goal to be is this is kind of far fetched, but I don't know if you know about the Michelin star rating systems or whatever like that with restaurants, but Michelin is the highest graded restaurant guide in the world, right? And fun fact is that it's the same Michelin tire company That is if they're the same company. But they started off in Europe and they rate their restaurants on a scale of 1 to 3 stars. And if you're 3 stars, that means that it doesn't matter where you're at in the world. If you're a 3 star restaurant, these inspectors have rated this restaurant to be able to, it's so good you can just travel anywhere from the world to that destination and you're not going to be disappointed. Like you have to go through so much rigorous training to just get to 1 star. And then to get to 2 stars, you have to wait another couple, 3 or 4 years. But to get to that 3rd star, that's like the pinnacle of success. Like winning the, it's like Michael Jordan winning the NBA MVP and the finals MVP in the same year. It's like, it's establishing yourself as a destination that people can go to and not be disappointed. And Michelin, they grade I think like 9 cities in America. And it's funny because their requirement for the cities that they grade in, they have to have a unique cuisine. They have to have obviously high standards for their restaurants, and it has to be a high tourist city. And Santa Fe embodies that, right? Like New Mexico in general embodies that. So I feel like, if my goals aren't trying to become one of the first, if not one of the first couple Michelin rated Native American restaurants, like that would be huge. You know what I mean? Like people would know that like I left my impact there in this world with such little time that we have, with such little opportunities that we get. I think that even if I don't get there, if I'm still trying to get there, then that's cool with me. Like that's my goal. Like I just want to make sure that I am the cream of the crop and I'm the best of the best. I want to make sure that I'm studying as much as I can to make sure that whenever someone tries to, compete with me, that I'm unprepared or that I'm not knowledgeable about the food that I'm making. Um, it's just really important to me, like I think that with that being said, my Pueblo and my family, as much as they say that it's not important, it's important to them, and this is important to us. You know what I mean? Like if I were to fail this, like I would feel like such a disappointment. But if I were to succeed in this, I think the reward far more outweighs the risk of failure or whatever the case may be. Like I just truly want to become the best. I want to be someone that can teach people our food cuisine without being pretentious about it. I can offer all these different opportunities with that type of success. And me and Chef Ray have talked about that before, where we're like, if me and him can get just at least a star, that would at least open the doors for us being like, let's do this, like let's do this whole thing. So yeah, that's my biggest goal. Obviously all the other stuff that we talked about is that's there too, but I feel like that's part of the journey of getting to where I want to be. So yeah, opening or having a 3 Michelin star restaurant, yeah, that's the biggest goal in my mind.
That's a pretty big goal, but a pretty good goal. A big goal, but a good goal.
Thank you.
And I'm sure, like you said, the journey, you'll have a lot of like other smaller goals that you'll accomplish on your way towards that bigger goal. Um, so the last question that I'm going to ask is if someone is interested in pursuing entrepreneurship, but they haven't taken the leap, what is one piece of advice that you would give them?
Just like I said, we talked about this before. Like it's very simple, like with creating your website. When we were just talking about this earlier, you're like, wow, you created your own website. I'm like slow down. Like I literally just clicked a bunch of buttons and I had a template already ready to go for me. I just had to insert my photos and insert descriptions of the food. Um, it's like, yeah, it's okay to be afraid of these challenges that you're facing, but that shouldn't stop you from wanting to achieve what you're trying to achieve. Like, I think it's kind of funny that, some people they say they love like rapping or they love cooking or they love taking photos and they brag about it like on social media so much. And then you see them in person or you ask them like, hey, what you been up to? And they're like, oh, nothing much, just hanging out. Like, if you love something, man, like why are you not out there? Like, why are you not like grinding it out like every single day to try to like become better? Like if I'm at home and I'm not able to cook, I'm reading books, I'm reading some type of, informal thing that can help me get better. If it's not a cookbook, I'm trying to read something that helps my mentality get to where I want to get to. Like, I try to expand my mind in terms of how to like download and receive greatness in front of me. So like, it sounds kind of funny, but I read this book, the Mamba Mentality book by Kobe Bryant, and that guy's so smart. He was so smart. It's just like crazy to think like to get his basketball shot better, he learned how to. He was watching a nature documentary and he saw that a tiger, when it attacks its prey, that it uses its tail as a third leg, and like that's how he figured out how to shoot a jump shot better. Like, and I was like, what does that even mean? Like, how, like what? But it's like, okay, he literally was like, I want to see how I can download all this information from things around me to make me better. And with that being said, I like to go to like NBA games or different like concerts and stuff to see like the energy that just is surrounding these people that have worked so hard to get to where they want to get to. And when you look up like these certain people and they ask these people like, how did you get there? That's what we're just talking about. They're like, just put the effort in. Like, you know what I mean? Like some of these people that you see like doing all these crazy things on TV and stuff, when things don't go right for them, like say if it's like, Stephen Curry, I was watching a game last night, like he lost like on this crazy like game winning shot or whatever, and he went right back to his training facility and he just started shooting. Like he just kept working on it. And it's like most people in that situation would just be like, oh, let's just go home, let's just call it a day. But it's like you just have to put the effort in. Like if you love something, put the effort in. It's like you have to look at it as if it's like your partner, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, you and your partner will get into these certain arguments or just these little pickles of a situation, but like if you love your partner, would you just give up on them right away? Would you just be like, oh, okay, this little speed bump happened. We're done. Later. Bye. Like, no, like this is what you love. This is something that you care about, and this is something that makes you happy. Why are you not pursuing that? And like I said, to answer that question, just make the effort. Read books, listen to certain types of music, like expand your horizons. Like if you listen to rap all the time, try listening to some R&B or some rock or something. Even if you don't like it, at least now you know that your brain has been stretched out to a point where it can't return back to normal. Because like you try out different foods, you try out different different books, you just try out different things, and it's like wow, like once you try to expand your mind, that's where great people are made. Like I don't know any great person that just knows their field and that's it. It's like every great person that's done something in this world has either gone outside their comfort zone to learn something that they never would have learned. Going back to that Mamba mentality book, Kobe Bryant learned how to ballet dance to help his foot work out. Like, isn't that like you would never think that, right? Like, who else would consider that? And it's like, I think that it's really cool that he took all these different chances on himself to try to expand his mind and get better. And that's really a huge inspiration for me. And I think that it's really daunting for a lot of people at first, but it's really simple. Just simplify things. Like literally look something up, watch a TV show, watch a movie that's highly acclaimed, and you want to know why it's highly acclaimed, and you'll start to research and be like, oh, that's why, like this is why. And it's like all these different forms of art are out there for you to consume. And I think it's really easy for people like, to just go on the internet and to slack off or to just do something totally different. Like we've all been there. Like when you're trying to watch like an informative video, like say you're trying to watch a video on how to change a tire, but the algorithm's like, hey, do you want to watch Kobe Bryant shoot 10 jump shots 10 times? I'm like, yeah, heck, okay, I'll do that instead. It's like, but no, it's like the world is your oyster. You can go on so many different platforms on the internet with an intention, and you can learn so many different things. Like I learned so many different cooking techniques, how to cut differently just by watching YouTube, like take that chance, take that effort, like make the risk. Like even if you fail, at least you'll be at least maybe if you are discouraged, at least you could at least tell yourself at the end of the day, I took that chance and it wasn't for me. And maybe you'll figure out like me, like I would get discouraged by so many different things that I would just quit right away. And when I was learning how to cook, I would or cut like vegetables and stuff, I would cut myself. And I was like, God, this sucks. But like, I never wanted to give up on that because I was like, I finally found something that I loved for once and I didn't want to give that up. So, yeah, long story short, again, just take the effort. Don't limit yourself to these, to your own fear of what may happen. Because honestly, the biggest things as human beings, the biggest form of fear comes from the unknown. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people. if they knew the answer was just no or yes, they'd be like, oh, okay. But when it's the unknown, you're completely just terrified of things. And I think that it's just important to take that risk, no matter how bad you may fall or fail, just take it. And I think that that's the only way that I can give the best advice to people. Just make the effort, and that's it.
Well, thank you, Ryan, for your time and your story. I know you're super, super busy with your business, but thanks for coming on here and sharing a little bit about your pop-up and how you got started and just some of your insight, from your own experiences. It's been really good, catching up with you after reconnecting, and I've
Mhm.
enjoyed watching your journey. I still need to try your wings, but I swear they look so
Come
good.
come by. Yeah, I know
Yeah.
you know where I'm at. You know where to find me.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
before we go, I do want to say, obviously me and you have been talking about this, but rest in peace to our friend Alessandro Gurule. That was a really big thing for me too. Like every so often, you find out about these people that you're on this journey with, and that not everything is promised. Like when you told me, I was like, what? You know what I mean? But it's still obviously very disheartening to think about that. But it's like, okay, me and you are in contact with each other. Like we can at least try to honor, that person by at least, trying to reconnect it and realizing that we don't have as much time as we think we do. So I'm really grateful for you for, not only reaching out to me, but it's really cool to know that, a lot of people they change over a period of time, and either it's for the good or for worse reasons. But generally you've been the same pretty cool person all the like since elementary school, to Vargas. Like I don't think me and you have ever had an argument with each other. I can't remember you ever getting mad in my whole frame of reference of knowing you. And it's just been really cool to see that after all these years that we didn't like know where each other's whereabouts and stuff were, they're still the same Cecilia. And that makes me really happy to know that like, that we're still on good terms with each other. And it just sucks to hear about people like that passing away, but at least now me and you are like, hey, let's make this happen. Let's get on this podcast. Let's talk about what's going on, and let's see what we can do with this right now and plant the seed.
yeah, definitely. Definitely good to reconnect, and yeah,
Mhm.
like I said, I'm glad we have been able to reconnect, and I know where to find you, but for the people listening who don't know where to find you, where can they find you, like online and in person?
Right now our website's a little bit under construction, but that's really, that's kind of like a secondary thing because people always find us on Instagram. So Instagram at the at symbol with YAPOPUP. So it's a pop up, and when you type it in, you'll just see this big green alien in the background. You can find us physically at 505 Cerritos Road inside Chomp Food Hall. We are open from 12 to 8 on Wednesdays through Sundays. Today we're not open. We just had some issues with our shipment of food and stuff that was coming in, so we just decided to call it off. But yeah, it's just been the 505 Cerritos, and then also we do the Super Bowl chicken wing platter sales and stuff like that. So we also sell in the res as well too. So it's just been those two locations for now. But if there's any other updates of where we'll be at, you can check us out on social media, and we'll always update very, very frequently of where our whereabouts are going to be.
And Super Bowl is coming up, and I believe this episode will be posting like the week or 2 weeks before. So,
Nice.
yeah, definitely check out your pop-up for your Super Bowl food needs. And check out his Instagram too. I swear they look like I still haven't tried them yet. I've tried his tacos, but the wings literally look so good.
Thank
So
you so
go
much.
get some. Well,
I
thank you
appreciate
so
that.
much, Ryan. And I hope we'll have you on the podcast again, and hopefully we'll get a hold of Chef Ray and have him on. But congratulations on like what
Thank
you're
you.
doing, and good luck on everything that you're pursuing, and like UNM Rainforest and then all of our other resource partners are here to continue to support you throughout your journey. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And again, to you too as well. Like I said, I'm really glad to know that like you're still in the education field. You've always been a very, very cerebral person, and you've always like, been focused on your education. So it's really nice to know that you're using that for a good reason. You have a platform that you're using that for. And, it's just really cool to reconnect with someone like you that I grew up with. It's really rare to be able to reconnect with people just in general, but especially with someone that we have so much history with. Like it's been really, really cool. And yeah, I just want to say thank you to you and for the podcast. This is my first time doing one. So I think it's just been really, really fun to be able to explain how we got to certain places, why we do this, and I wouldn't want to have to explain to someone other than you. So thank you. I really appreciate that, Cecilia.
Of course.
Have a good day.